Hello, and welcome to this T-Level Tactics video on presenting data for Root Core 3 data of the T-Level Digital Support Services course. In this video, we're going to identify ways to present information, we'll compare some data visualization methods, and we'll also prepare some information to be delivered to an audience. Before we get started, T-Level Tactics videos are not endorsed or sponsored by any education institution or qualification awarding body. And T-Level Tactics videos should not be used as a replacement to any classroom learning you might be receiving, as the discussion and practical activities with your peers and lecturer will help to expand your thinking and comprehension on the topic. Instead, these materials are best used as preparation material or as revision to reinforce your learning. In addition, these videos cover the same content and required knowledge for Root Core 3 of the T-Level Digital Business Services course, however, will be more contextualized towards IT support roles. Let's get started. Previously, we've mentioned that raw data is great, but it isn't yet useful to anyone. Information is data that's been processed to give context and meaning. And information is the useful part that we can get out of collecting all this data and analysing it. So how can we communicate our findings to people? How could we communicate information to a meeting of managers in a business? Or a lecture theatre full of people? Or perhaps just one person? What might be best? Each of these audiences will best receive information in different formats and in different ways. And it's best to consider who your audience is in terms of subject comprehension, age, the time available to communicate the information to them, and their native language. Here are some that we could use. We could use reports, detailed documents that provide comprehensive information. They could be a couple of pages long to entire tomes of hundreds of pages. In reports, data can be accompanied by in-depth analysis, which is fantastic for formal settings with in-depth analysis and documentation, and for when people have got plenty of time to read through them. With presentations, we can use digital or physical slides, which usually act as a visual aid for presenters and can help the audience. With presentations, text is best kept to a minimum, and the data should be very visual. It's great for meetings, conferences, and educational settings. Webinars are similar to presentations, but online. Audiences usually see a lot less of the presenter, as in they only really see their face or perhaps not even at all. Webinars should still be very visual. Additional information could be sent digitally afterwards. And it's great for remote audiences, interactive sessions, and online training. Videos are multimedia that could include a presenter or voiceover. And they can include other elements, pre-recorded or computer-generated. They're great for storytelling, tutorials, and engaging content. Audio presentations could be in the form of podcasts or radio broadcasts. Here, the audience relies solely on spoken words, so the words should be chosen carefully to avoid confusion. It's going to require you to have some very clear pronunciation. This is best used for short, brief delivery of essential information or for conversation-based topics. We could also use extended reality technologies, including virtual reality, where we can create some immersive environments and use systems such as Oculus Rift, Steam VR, PlayStation VR, and others. They can be really engaging for training, simulations, and also complex data exploration as well. In addition to VR, there's augmented reality, which overlays digital information onto the real world. Examples of this include Apple Vision and HoloLens. It's really useful for interactive learning and enhancing presentations. Choosing the right method of presenting your information is crucial. When doing so, make sure you consider things like audience engagement, as different audiences have varying preferences and levels of understanding, and choosing the right method can enhance the engagement your audience has, ensuring the audience remains interested and attentive. Think about your clarity and comprehension, as it can significantly impact how easily the audience can understand the data. Visual aids like graphs and charts can simplify complex information, making it more digestible. Consider retention of information. Effective presentation methods can improve the retention that people have of what you're telling them. Different visuals, animations, and interactive elements can help reinforce your key messages and make them more memorable. Consider context and relevance. For example, maps can illustrate geographical trends, while infographics can summarize data in a more visually appealing way. Think about your audience's technical knowledge and make sure that you're using the right terminology to match that. If you're using overly technical terminology or complex methods, then non-expert audiences can become confused and disengaged. Think about the purpose of your presentation and what the goal of the presentation is. Are you informing, persuading, educating people? For instance, a formal report might be more suitable for detailed analysis, while a video might be better for some storytelling. Think about the time you have available, as different methods are going to require different amounts of time in order to communicate the message effectively. Think about how your audience can give you feedback and interact with you. Some methods, audiences are going to be very passive and just watching, but other methods, they can become more engaged and ask questions and get involved. And finally, make sure you consider accessibility, making sure that whatever presentation method you're using, everybody can get the message, including people with disabilities and additional learning needs. So if you're a member of the Patreon, download the task sheet for this video from patreon.com/tleveltactics and have a go at the first task. It'll take you only about 20 minutes. So pause the video here, have a go, then come back when you're ready to move on. So let's compare some different data visualization methods. Now, regardless of how you present your information, the data itself still needs to be communicated and communicated effectively. We can visualize data to make it much easier to comprehend. We could display our data in a table, much like it might be in a spreadsheet or a database. While it's structured and we can see it exactly how it would be, it's perhaps not the easiest to comprehend. It's perfectly fine for detailed information where precision is key. But it's really not the best way for an audience to digest what we're trying to communicate. Instead, we could use something like a graph, for instance, a scatter graph or a line graph, which is fantastic for showing trends and comparisons. Or a chart, like a bar chart, or a pie chart, or a funnel chart, or an area chart, and there's many, many more different types of charts and graphs available. Charts are much more useful for representing proportions and more hierarchical data. We could consider using a dashboard, which is a more interactive interface that can display key metrics, which is great for real-time data monitoring and decision-making, often used by management in businesses and organizations. We could display our data in an infographic, a visual representation that can combine different graphics and data together, which is great for storytelling and summarizing lots of information. We could use things like heat maps as well, which are visual representations that use color to indicate data density, which is fantastic for identifying patterns and trends in large data sets. Different visualization methods can convey information with different levels of clarity, but can all simplify complex information. Certain visualizations are better suited for emphasizing specific trends, patterns, or outliers in the data. And engaging visuals can capture your audience's attention and help them remember details better. visualizations can be more accessible to different audiences, and they can be a powerful storytelling tool. The right method can help convey a narrative and guide an audience through the important points you're trying to get across. So for our Patreon members, head back to the task sheet and have a go at task 2 on there, all about visualization. This will take you only about 20 minutes, I think. So pause the video here, have a go, and then come back when you're ready to move on to part 3. Let's have a go at creating some visualizations together. Let's try transforming some data into a visualization. For this example, we'll use some data in a spreadsheet file and open it in Excel, but you'll also be able to follow similar steps in other spreadsheet software. Data visualizations can also be created in database software like Access, and that involves creating and editing some reports, which is more in depth. We're not going to have a go at that now. You will need to head to our Patreon page at patreon.com/T-Level Tactics and download the Sample Data Monthly Figures Excel file. You'll find it in the free resources post, which should be pinned at the top of the page. Part 1. Open up that monthly figures file and find the following data at the top. We're going to create a simple visualization from this data. Part 2. Select all of the data, including the headings. This should be in cells A3 through to D9. In the ribbon at the top of the window, click Insert. Then click on the column or bar chart button. Then select one of the clustered column or bar charts from the list. Excel will create a chart based on the data you've selected. In this case, the data is quite simple, and Excel will make its best guess on how to display it. But in other situations, you may need to further refine your data or create multiple visualizations to convey your message. Have a go at creating some other charts with the same data. Try a pie chart, for instance. And have a think about when you might use each type of visualization. So that's a quick look at making some charts and graphs. And if you're a Patreon member, you can have a go at task 3 on the task sheet, where there'll be some different data that you can play about with. This will take about 20 minutes, I think. So not very long. You can pause the video here, have a go, then come back, and we'll finish things off with a couple of exam questions. So in this video, we've identified some different ways to present information, we've compared some data visualization methods, and we've also prepared some information to be delivered to an audience. Let's try 2 exam questions. Here's the first one. Describe 2 different methods of presenting data and explain one advantage and one disadvantage of each method. And for the second, what is the purpose of using infographics in data presentation? And what are 2 key elements that make them effective? And that brings us to the end of the video. In the next video, we'll be taking a closer look at how we can use data in businesses and organizations. So make sure you're subscribed at youtube.com/T-Level Tactics. And if you haven't visited the Patreon yet, head over to patreon.com/T-Level Tactics to take a look at all the exclusive content that our members get access to. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.